used a circle knife made out of surgical steel, which is a wondrous metal, and it's a naturally antibiotic, and a laser, an arc sodium laser, very small.
All right, you're on. So,
I'm on. Okay.
ready.
So we begin with the metallurgy. Hello everybody and welcome. I'm Karl the drum guy, and I'm gonna give you a very beginning understanding of metallurgy and how it pertains to spell work, or how it corresponds. I'll read from my notes now. I tend to ramble, sorry. Study paganism and magic long enough, and you will eventually find correspondences for everything. Now, metals have been with humanity for many centuries, from the making of tools, of increasing the strength, all the way from personal items that give personal protection and strength of crops, all the way up to these glorious ceremonial items that you'll find in most, for lack of a better word, modern churches nowadays. But in the pagan cultures, a lot of these items were things made out of gold, silver, the precious metals, were generally used as glorifications, as burial masks or small deities on altars, because the metals were too soft. They didn't understand about alloying, adding things to them to make them stronger. So the metallurgy walked hand in hand with us, much like I said in my beginning little blurb about this, ever since the first proto-human picked up a piece of lightning forged steel on the ground and decided, hey, I can do something with this, and made a tool out of it, or however, I wasn't there 40,000 years ago, I would have liked to have been. But let's see. And what we'll focus on tonight is the magical and ceremonial correspondences of these different metals. One of my favorite connections of metal is how one can make a tangible association of a connection to a god or your regular people or everyday life, as far as farming or how to connect to things. You make a tangible item that connects to non-tangible things, such as faith and how things grow, and how to make offerings that will bring about positive outcomes. It's hardly a new concept, that's been around for decades, not decades, centuries. Okay, now, in my studies, I figured out that there were 7, which is a very important number to remember. That will come up again in a little bit. 7 noble metals of antiquity. What's fascinating about these metals is a lot of them have correspondences that go along with a god or one of the planets in our solar system. The 7 visible planets to the ancient peoples, up until Galileo with his wonderful invention of the brass and glass magnifying glass. We only had the 7 planets they could see, and all these 7 metals I'm going to talk about will have a corresponding planet and god that they actually are used to work with. Now, number 1, the one that everybody could probably guess, is right at the top of the list: gold. It is the metal most associated with the sun. It's used potentially for everything from personal growth and gain to financial success and power. And once again, is one of the few metals that from antiquity has lasted all the way through till now. And all 7 of these metals have such a connection and vitality to human life that they have followed us into the present from as far back as 40,000 years ago. So, the ancient Egyptians used gold for sun power, and was given to the pharaohs, who were seen as descendants of the gods, and thus they were buried with these huge caches of gold. And just the wonderment of avarice. It was to ensure a comfortable afterlife. the particular culture of the Egyptians with the pharaohs and everything, they were buying their way in, as it were. Now that was eventually pushed away to where your soul weighed as much as a feather, and then that would open the gates to the positive side of the afterlife. But before that, they used to actually buy their way in. So they'd have big gold bricks and gold-plated chariots and horses buried with them, and everything was gold everywhere.
Indulgences.
Yes, but they were also extremely generous with their gold in that time, because they would actually hand it out and it made its way into large parts of Europe as amulets to ward off evil, and predominantly to protect children and homesteads. The gold was used mostly for small children and for the home, because what's more precious than your future? As a grown adult, you've made it. You're the one who's providing the food and everything. You want to protect the next generation, so that's what a lot of the gold ornamentation was used for the children. Let's see. In Norse culture, it was seen as a tool for conducting trade, as well as tribute to the gods for times of great bounty. It's one of the wonderful things about gold in 24 karat form, in its purest form. If you put it in a roaring bonfire to send it on to the gods, it will actually gasify. It will burn down to where it turns into a gas and go up with the smoke and be gone. It actually makes its way to the gods that way. It's the only other metal that will do that is mercury, and we'll get to that in a while. But gold, I thought, was fascinating. You could just throw it into a 1200-degree bonfire and it goes directly to whatever your chosen deities are. I wouldn't suggest that now.
Oh, way to give me ideas, Karl.
Well, there's a lot of anagrams for gold. Things that are yellow, stuff that is handmade and truly puts your heart into it. If you make it out of a gold substance, it doesn't actually have to be gold itself. The intent to the gods will be there, and that's really what you're looking for now. Let's see, and that's it for gold. Let's see, and then number 2, right behind it, is silver. And this one, it's used by just about every culture that follows a magical bent of some sort. Silver is ubiquitous in that it's in just about every ceremony from every culture and walk of life. Yes.
Interject a little bit.
Absolutely.
And go back to gold.
Yes.
Have you heard of how the Mayan culture used gold with the coca plant?
No, I have not.
So, okay.
I'll have to research that, though. That was,
Yeah.
yes. No, I could imagine that it was used to open the mind and go on spirit journeys and really take you to a whole other plane. I know in the Mayan culture they use it a lot as ornamentation. Their priests wear the big, beautiful headdresses because it, personally, in functionality, it's a useless metal. You can't make weapons, you can't make tools. It's all ceremonial because it was all 24 karat. But the thing that I'll have to research about the coca.
It for space travel too.
Yep. You couldn't have one of these without gold.
No.
There's a lot in there that's gold and copper.
Yeah.
So metal follows us even now. No matter what you do, you're going to find metal somewhere. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I will research that. Okay. Any other questions about gold? No? Okay. Moving
I
forward.
find so.
All right, silver. Once again, used in a bunch of different magical traditions from all over the world. It's a true neutral metal in that it's considered to be in the same family with the noble gases. It won't react to things. It doesn't give up a molecule. It won't pull a molecule away from anything. You can add it to stuff, and silver just does what silver does. It's like, yep, I'm silver. Here I am. Praise me. That's what it does. It's generally associated with the moon because, the reflected silver light of the moon, and everybody here is familiar with that. It also is purported to, its magical connections are intuition, psychic sensitivity, and it's also very powerful to use it in defensive magics due to its reflective properties and its purity of voice. It's pure silver can damp down a lot of negativity, and it can reflect that back to whatever sent it to you. So good, like having a mirror facing a doorway into your house when people enter, it pushes out, like that's one of the modalities. It will push out whatever negativity is trying to come in with them. And so having a mirror facing a door is a good thing. So I like that giant mirror in our front room. Even though we have a blanket over it, it's kind of wipes out anything anybody tries to walk in the house with. It's a big 6x8 mirror.
But would that be any white metal or it has to be silver?
In our modern times, silverback mirrors are not something you're going to find a lot. They use whatever the shiny stuff is they put on mirrors now. They don't make them out of in the antiquity that I'm talking about. They would have just been a big flat hammered out plate of silver, and then shined as much as they polished it as much as they could. But nowadays you can have stand-ins for that kind of thing. A modern mirror will reflect anything that's reflective. Once again, it depends on intent. You can charge a mirror and use it for that purpose, but having any kind of silver attached to the mirror, you could have a simple amulet and hang it from a corner. It will impart its magical powers into that mirror and magnify it.
You could have a piece of silver, like a teapot, sitting on a table in front of your door.
Yep.
Something
Yep.
like that.
Anything like that
So
would work.
there'd be a little reflection. If you kept it polished real good.
You have to charge it? I mean,
It's
what's the charging process?
it's a self-charging metal. It holds its own power.
Okay.
If you really wanted to charge it with an extra like deification kind of power, moon magic is good. Put it out during the full moon and let that charge it up. I understand what you mean about
Stones,
charging.
okay.
Yeah. All right. It's also very representative of truth and trust. Gifts of silver carry this aspect. So making a gift of silver to someone has a much higher value, far beyond what you paid for the silver. I'm giving this to you as a sign of my trust to you. That's why a lot of the Norse armbands and a lot of rings are made out of silver. It's a circle of trust. The gold with the wedding rings is also a part of that. It's the purity. All right. But I think it's fascinating that a lot of times those gifts of silver carry such a higher onus than just the money. You want a person to trust and believe in you. Okay. And this is silver here. In case anybody's unfamiliar with what silver looks like, go ahead and pass that around. That one needs to be polished a little bit, but that's raw silver. So that would even
yellow?
it's got the X's have a little bit of yellow gold coating on them.
Okay.
So I think it just needs to be polished really good. Needs to be cleaned.
Okay.
Here. And number 3, my personal favorite because I am studying this, is copper. Probably from the dawn of man till now, and continuing on for many thousands of generations, this little chunk of metal right here is probably going to follow us forever. It will never be without copper. It's the basis for the majority of electrical work. It charges just about anything you put with it. It was first discovered about 10,000 years ago. It was a total fluke that it was found. The people that first discovered copper were Roman explorers that had moved east. And that's that around too. And the wonderful thing about that is 10,000 years ago, the ancient civilizations that were around the Mediterranean, they had learned to actually smelt and saltwater temper the copper, and then adding either tin or zinc to it, you get bronze or brass.
Good night.
Yeah, you add. Good night. Now, if you add, have a little example of the differences between the two. This little seal is this is a cast bronze. Okay, and it'll have a little different, you'll hear the difference between tin and zinc. This is copper with tin added. See, just kind of doink, doesn't really resonate. And you can hear the tinniness of it, it's higher. Now, you take copper and you add zinc to it, and you get brass. So it's a drastically different sound between the two metals, and that's alloy.
But, like with copper, is there like a version of it that it's not the wires? Is it like, what does it look like? I guess it's stone form.
Oh, it comes out of the ground.
It's like that.
This
Wow.
has been melted and turned into wire.
Okay.
When it comes out of the ground, it comes out in either a granulated powder form, which has to go through a refinery, or you can actually find places out in Arizona and Nevada and the Badlands area. They're huge since closed copper mines because it destroyed the land. They used a lot of acid to burn the copper out of the metal, out of the stone. But it comes out of the ground just like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not an alloy. It's not an alloy.
Yeah, it's a pure metal. This is pure copper. That's why I brought it in. There's nothing added to this. It just forms like that. It stays soft. But what's weird about this stuff is if you get this, you don't even have to get it hot. If you held this over that candle flame for about 2 minutes, it would actually decrease the cohesion in there and make it even softer.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a fascinating metal.
Here's another thing that's fascinating about it. One, it's probably the most conductive material. It is used everywhere.
Mhm. Oh, it's cheaper. Gold and silver's electric propensity is 12 and 87 times higher. But,
Yeah.
but you're not going to put
Gold wire.
gold everywhere.
Yeah.
This is way
But-
cheaper. That's why we use it so much.
But it's funny, I think there was one culture that actually used copper as the backing of its money.
Yeah, there are quite a few. The Greeks did that. The Greeks, let's see, they learned to smelt it and shape it, and then later into all manner of things were possible. They made tremendous amounts of things out of copper. They made their armors, edifices for their spiritual buildings, tools to work with all this, and one of their greatest deposits of it, they called it copper eis.
Okay.
Or,
Yeah, and Lorraine has a question.
yes.
Okay. Lorraine, go ahead and unmute, and you can ask your question.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was trying to, you kind of, I don't know if it was just my headphones. I thought it was interesting. Did you say copper plus zinc is what makes brass?
Yeah.
Okay, and there was another, what was the one you said before? Copper and, was it tin?
Yeah. That makes bronze.
And that makes, oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, the tin strengthens the copper to the point where it becomes bronze. And that's the beginning of the Bronze Age. That's why the Greeks 10,000 years ago all of a sudden became this world power, because now they had metal and tools and trade goods that were made out of this metal that didn't just wear out, didn't bend, it didn't warp.
The Hittites as well.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was the
Hittites
backbone of the
eventually discovered
Hittites.
iron.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, then they Hittites.
We'll get to that. We'll get there.
Okay, we'll get my favorites later.
Yeah. But to
Thank you.
clarify, brass is copper and zinc, bronze is copper and tin. And it just depends on the ratios, the quality of those two metals. Let's see, the Greeks called copper eis cyprium because their biggest mine was on the island of Cyprus, or Kupros in their language, hence copper. Since this island was the birthplace of Venus, copper is often associated with her and the planet Venus. Remember that I was saying there would be planetary correspondences? Yeah, it's Venus and the goddess Venus
What's the bet that Mercury is going to be associated with Mercury?
Mercury.
Something tells me.
That's a good
I had
idea.
a feeling.
Spoiler alert.
Right.
I don't know, anyone
She
willing to
figured
take
it
a
out.
bet? Taking bets here. I'm the treasurer. Take bets.
That's a good point. We will get to that. Copper is often associated with her and the planet Venus as well. One of my favorite aspects of copper is how it conducts and directs electricity. The electricity it loves the copper so much that it will not penetrate it to use it. It flows on the surface. It doesn't come through the center. The ions in it line up so that the electrical impulses can jump across. That's why it's a good thing for conducting positive energy into yourself. Using a wire like this, say you feel like you came away from something that left you with a lot of negative energy, you could take a piece of wire and wrap it around your finger like that, stick it in the ground, and instantly ground yourself.
Really?
Yeah, copper is a very powerful grounding tool.
Attached to you.
Yeah, just
and
like
then
that.
insert
And
it
you
in
can
the
put it in the ground and it'll draw all that negativity
And-
right out. And,
That's cool.
Just don't do it in a lightning storm.
That'll hurt.
Yeah.
No, I do.
But no, it really
so,
does.
So sometimes attachments occur,
Mhm.
and that's a very quick way of just getting rid of
Absolutely.
negative attachments.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can really do that with just about all of these metals, but copper is the most powerful for grounding magic. It will draw out, it'll actually draw everything into it, pull it right into the ground out again.
Ground.
Mhm.
Wow. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
It was worth my time.
Absolutely. Let's see. An example of this is I have a wand with copper wrapped around it, and it works as a boost as well. I put my thumb, I forgot to bring it with me, but it's much like this, but imagine a big piece of wood through the middle. So you can actually put your fingers on the copper and charge whatever you're doing with your own energy through the copper into the spell.
Nice.
Like I
Wait
said,
a second,
copper's
repeat.
Huh?
Wrap your wand with
If you have a wooden wand that, and a lot of us witchy poos do this, we have wands or staffs. You can wrap copper around any of your spiritual or magical tools, and it will boost the energy that's being put into it. It acts kind of like and it'll absorb the positive as well as the negative. So you can take the negative and ground it out of you, or you can put it on a wand that's going to be used for nothing but positivity and use that to cast your magic. Or I've seen people actually have as a wand just a piece of twisted copper. And and it works. So yeah, very, very magical stuff. Let's see. Also used in financial and healing magics, like those bracelets that people wear for the arthritis. You have a copper one on each wrist, and it regulates the flow of energy through your body. And a lot of time, people that have said that copper actually stops the arthritis in their hands. So it's a very positive metal to have.
And also too, it is said that if it changes color, it gets dark, it means that you should probably go to the doctor.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. All right, the other little metal that I talked about, tin. Now, tin.
And you say these were formerly noble metal.
Yes, because a lot of them don't interact, they don't change their structure. They absorb and alloy with other structures and make them stronger. So they don't, like copper becoming bronze, it's because you added either tin or zinc to it. It's an amalgam. It makes both of the metals within that amalgam much stronger than they would be alone.
Same it does for gold and silver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you add something to it, you add nickel to gold, and you wind up with, it becomes, you can take it down to 6 carat and wind up being as strong as steel. Yeah. So you're a jeweler, you know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the copper, like this wire, I can bend it right now with my finger, but no problem. Same thing with this tin foil.
And also the adding copper to silver makes it stronger, harder. And adding silver the copper does the inverse, the opposite. So it makes the copper
It's more malleable.
more malleable and easier to melt.
Nice.
So if you want your copper melt fast, just drop a little bit of silver in it and it goes
Yeah.
and melts.
Well, they're noble metals. They like to play with each other. But that's interesting. One way, silver and copper, one way becomes stronger, but the other way, if you do the ratios,
The
it
copper
makes it softer.
becomes softer. I mean, softer
Thank you
in
for
the
that.
sense that, because copper is already soft,
Mhm.
softer in the sense that it makes it easier to melt because copper is really strong, it's very strong.
Oh yeah, it takes 1950 degrees to get it liquid.
Yeah, because that, if you consider that the copper is pure, but you can't do the same with silver. If you were to wear like 999, and that's as far as it goes, silver, after years it would rub off on your skin and become thinner and thinner, but not so for copper.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
copper strong stuff.
No.
All right, thank you for that. Now we have tin. Everybody pretty familiar with aluminum foil? I brought that in because true tin foil is toxic to the touch. That's why we don't have tin cans anymore.
Oh, yeah.
It's skin permeable. It means if you hold a piece of tin, the toxic parts of the metal will go through your skin and into your bloodstream. That's why people drank. Yeah, tin is. Yeah.
That's what happened
That's
to the
why
Arctic explorers.
Exactly, and that's why we moved away from tin cans for beer and food and such.
What are we using now?
Aluminum.
Oh,
It's almost the same. The main difference between the two is aluminum is shiny
We still
silver
say
like
tin
this.
foil.
Yeah, we still say tin foil.
And tin cans.
Yep.
They're aluminum cans.
because I thought all those cans are still tin.
Yep.
Well, we still call them tin, so it's easy.
Well,
to-
aluminum is right up there with being toxic, but I'd have to like eat a piece like this every day for 20 years to have a problem.
Not recommended.
No, but everybody's like I said, everyone's familiar with tin foil. Tin straight out of the ground, it looks like a basic white powder. It doesn't come out in chunks like raw aluminum powder. It actually is just a dust. They have to refine it and melt it to turn it into sheets to use as tin. Yeah, it's neat stuff. Let's see, it's associated with Jupiter, which is, that sounds funny because it is one of the, on its own, weakest metals, but it's associated with the strongest god that there is.
Because
Jupiter.
that's how they got bronze.
Yeah, that's because you add it to something else. Because you add the power of tin to any other metal, and it does something on the Rockford scale to increase like 30 times stronger than it would normally be by itself. Most of these noble metals will do that. Let's
Yeah,
see.
so they added also to silver these days to create, forgot the name, and the silver then doesn't tarnish.
I can see that. Yeah, because aluminum and the tin is they found things in ancient Roman burials, going back even before the Roman Empire was established, of farmers and such being buried with small tin representations of their goats, animals that to go with them in the afterlife. And they're a little white because they've oxidized from being in the earth for so long, but it's still a solid little animal figurine. It didn't break down.
So, in our coins, what would you say would be the percentage-wise of actual, like a penny, for example? How much copper is actually in a penny?
About 15% now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's roughly 15%.
None.
No, they didn't. They
think
switched over
it's-
total alloy now.
I think, yeah, in the past it was.
Yeah, I've got ones from
in
the
past.
40s that are solid copper.
I don't remember when it changed, but
Yeah.
now it's just plated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
funny
The
thing
new
about
yeah, you
solid
scrape
copper
them.
pennies, they're worth more than 1 penny.
Yeah.
Because they're worth the copper.
Because then, yeah.
Well, it's a fascinating stuff. Let's see. Associated with Jupiter, both the planet and the god, and this is tin. Romans called it plumbum album, which means white lead. And they kind of knew it was a little toxic even back then. It's often blended to add strength and potency to other metals. A lot of times, like I said, it's weak on its own, but if you add it to other stuff, it can just spike the strength of other things and drive the magical propensities for them way up. It doesn't oxidize or break down from weathering. So you can literally take a filigree little tin thing and put it on the roof here of the building, come back in 10,000 years, it'll still be there.
Nice.
It doesn't get hurt by being out at all. It's primarily used, and I hope I don't lose anybody here, primarily used with sexuality and the sacral chakra.
Nice.
In this, it's used to draw that which you most desire to you. That's the raw.
Also very
Tin.
Jupiter-like.
Yeah, exactly. This is
Yeah.
connections with Jupiter. It's the strength and power of passion that you want to draw to you. Particularly rejuvenation and regeneration on a physical level. It works. This is the weird thing about it, and why a lot of canning companies in the 1850s to about 1920 used it as canning. It's a natural antibactericide. It naturally kills off any bacteria that gets on it. That can be why it's bad for humans, because if you get it in you,
Like silver.
yep, exactly. Let's see, where's that? It's a powerful musical metal when used to make bells. Yeah, that's why the brass thing, you add it to the copper and you get brass and wonderful bells that way.
Do you have any information on tin that say whether the utilitarian tin is an alloy of something?
No, it's not.
It's-
Tin is straight by itself, comes out of the ground as a white powder, goes through the smelting process, gets flattened out into plates, and then would get stamped into cans or whatever shape container they needed it to be.
Really?
Yeah, it's a raw element. Tin comes out of the ground just. I thought it was strange too. I also thought that tin was always an alloy of some sort, but nope, it's a raw element, comes right out of the ground like a white powder, and
It's complex to me because I use it, and in Tula was experimenting with metallurgy, and it burns off to a white powder. And
Mhm.
if you remelt that alloy that you make of it a few times, all the tin eventually burns off.
yes,
But that's so bizarre.
I know. Well, one of the things I did discover is that when you add it to things, you have to add it 50% more than what you want the final product to be,
Right.
Because it burns off.
because it
most
cooks
of
off a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. And Jupiter's lightning bolts were the symbol typically used for tin in a lot of his temples in Rome and in Greece. You would find 6-foot tall tin lightning bolts right as he came in through the door. You guess who stole that idea? Winds up becoming Zeus's symbol later on. Yeah. And then when fired with copper, you get bronze. So that's where bronze comes from. That's a wonder. Like I said, these 7 are all noble. That by themselves they're virtually indestructible, but you add them to other stuff and it just really drives it up. Now another one of my personal favorites, and this one is everywhere. It's the first super hardenable metal that humankind found, iron.
it. Yes.
It's in almost, it's in the simplest thing to the most complex machinery that we have. Everything's got some side of iron part. It's associated with the earth itself. It gets that connection because of the way it's mined and the fact that it's an incredibly strong metal even on its own. It's connected with the sky and the universe, as the first iron humanity used was meteorite iron. Before they knew to dig deep into the earth to get it, big meteorite would hit the ground and send little iron pieces everywhere.
Yeah.
So that was, you just walk along, oh, I'll use that to make something. And now you have a new plow.
Another thing about meteoric iron, actually was one of the weakest forms of iron.
Yeah, that's why they added a lot of stuff. We're moving, yep. Moving forward, it's okay. It's heavily influenced by the as above, so below. Using iron in grounding rituals and astral travel. If you do a lot of third eye astral projection, if you keep a hunk of iron, raw iron in your hand, it acts as an anchor to this plane of existence. So you won't wind up traveling so far out that you run
Can't
into
find
something
anything,
that decides it wants to keep you there. You've got that iron in your hand as an anchor point.
And to turn
So
the
you-
iron grip.
Exactly. So you'll always be able to pull yourself back with that iron. Yeah, it acts as a anchor in the physical world. Hematite is another form of magnetized iron. That actually occurs within the Earth's mantle and then comes up as hematite. That's
I didn't realize that was a metal.
yeah, hematite. It's a type of under certain pressure and certain water conditions, the iron will turn into hematite, becomes a stone, but it's still iron. If you can melt it and forge it just like iron. Let's see. Hematite in the form of magnetized iron creates a magical barrier. So if you want to keep if you want to keep horrible things away from you, hematite being a reflective metal, being that it's magnetic, it actually will change the course of negative energy and draw it down and away from you. Let's see.
So if you don't have raw iron, could you use hematite the same way?
Yes, you can. But be careful, because just as it can protect, it can also push away positive.
That's the point I was waiting for you to reach. Everything says negative.
No, you got to be careful. It can shove away everything good that you're trying to do too. Much like the selenite, or as you spoke of before with the smudging with certain types of sages, it's the atomic bomb of the spiritual world. You want everything gone out of your house, just walk around with a big hunk of iron in your hand, and run it down the door frames, run it across the top of your windows. It grounds out and removes everything.
Does Paulo Santo Paulo
Yeah, Palo Santo.
does the same thing?
Yes, that can
It gets
also,
rid of
it
good
can push
and-
out the good and the positive.
Because
Yeah.
somebody recommended it and I use it. I noticed when
But
I
a lot
do,
of it's
just,
intent.
Yeah.
everything good goes.
Yeah, the root asafoetida, aka devil's dung, when burnt, that does the same thing too. But yeah, he's talking about the metal, so yeah.
But if then you're free to be able to put your positive back. So that's the thing with the iron, you can actually repulse everything out of an area, and then in the same turn the iron over, put it in your other hand, and bring it positive. And
nice.
So
it's
which
all
one
about
sends out
intent.
the back? The right brings it. Left
Well,
brings it.
Your dominant hand is what you would want to banish, and then your other hand is what you would bring in with.
Okay.
Okay, Lorraine has another question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lorraine.
Sorry. Just everybody else is talking. I don't want to interrupt. Sorry.
Go right ahead.
So since you said that, okay, for example, I know that when you burn a black candle, you're supposed to burn a white candle at the same time so that the good stays, while the black candle acts like a black hole and sucks all the negative.
Yeah, that'll draw in sucked up all
Is
the
there
negative
something
and then.
similar to when you're using? Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like a balance. Is there something similar, like you were saying, regarding the hematite or using iron? The same with the selenite, because I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, well, with the iron, the selenite, or even with smudging, anytime you completely remove everything from an area, you create a void. Now, nature hates a void, okay? It will fill it with something, and it might not be something you asked for. So the best way to do it is to have your positivity and everything set up already, so that as soon as you get done cleansing an area, you move straight into refilling it with the positive. And iron is really good for that.
Okay.
That's what I have. These are very old house nails, somewhere in the 1800s. I'm not exactly sure how old they are, but those are raw iron. And actually, they're not 100% raw iron. They have a little bit of what did they put in them?
Carbon.
They did something to add carbon to them, so they're a little bit carbon steel, so that I can't break them like this. They won't snap. But if I hit it with a hammer from the side, it breaks right off. But those.
Is that the same way that they say that having like a horseshoe is good luck.
Yes, you leave it with the tines facing up above your front door. That way it catches all the luck,
Yes,
keeps it in
that's
the
what I
house.
have.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh. I
Yep,
have
but if
that.
you ever wanted
So
to,
it's better to keep it above the door? you
yes,
said?
above the front door, but you want it facing upwards. And if you ever want to clear out your house
Yeah,
and get
no,
rid
I
of
don't have it.
everything, yep, you take that horseshoe in your right hand, hold it so that it's facing downwards, and just walk around your house and then walk right out your back door, go around your house, come back through the front door, face it back upwards and put it right back above your front door. That will eliminate that.
Okay, I have a honeydew project tomorrow.
Okay. But that's a
Thank
very
you for
quick,
that.
easy way to cleanse, remove, and recharge with iron. Is using a horseshoe that way.
Oh, amazing.
Hmm.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see. And let's see, we talked about the void and how to refill it. Okay, iron is associated with the planet Mars,
Ah, Mars.
hence the red rust planet, because most of the soil there is
Iron
iron
oxide.
oxide. Thank you.
And actually, the lakes in Minnesota, they taste like rusted iron because of the iron
Iron
range.
oxide everywhere, yep. Yep, it's associated with the planet and the god. Being a war god, iron was the archetypical representation of the warrior. Swords, shields, armor, things of that nature. Also brings up a lot of power and courage. Much of humankind's conquest is rooted in our ability to manipulate iron. As we build chariots and catapults and knives and arrowheads. And
For more of that, see
it
the Oscar
becomes,
ritual.
yeah, but you also have iron kettles for cooking,
Yeah.
iron tools for like scythes and reaping
Yeah.
tools for bringing in the harvest. So
Plowshares.
iron isn't always about war. Iron has walked hand in hand with us for centuries.
It's a metal used for tools.
Yes.
I mean,
And
do
some
you
of those are
ever
tools
hear
of
the
war.
line, plowshares to swords and then
Yep.
swords to plowshares?
Back again, yep.
Good.
Because iron was so malleable and not set like it is now. Steel can't really be done like that.
You gotta
But
reform it,
iron
melt it.
can.
Yep.
You can turn an iron scythe into an iron blade if you need to go to war. And then once war is over, hey,
Back into
guess
it.
what?
Again.
You can forge it right back into a scythe without losing too much of it.
Mhm.
Well,
Iron is not
the Assyrians were the first people to adapt iron after the Bronze Age collapse.
Yes.
And that's how they took over so much of the Near East for so long.
Yeah.
And also, coincidentally, how we got to keep the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Well, it's kind of hard to stop the enemy at the gates when their swords can cut through yours. But in iron amulets, a lot of them have been found in many of the Norse. I know I hammer on a lot about Norse, but they were one of the few cultures that did use iron in a lot more forms than just weapons of war or plowshares. They would make amulets with the Helm of Awe, which is a blessing, asking a blessing of Odin, and for the Hammer of Thor, and many of those have been found in a lot of the Norse burials. Even in the Celtic burials, some Scottish burials in the Highlands, they will find these remnants of the Norse occupation of the land. So, and it was all made out of iron, and it was designed. They were designed to instill a sense of happiness and peaceful moving on, and that was mainly for the people that are still alive burying the person. So now we come to lead. doesn't seem like it would be that big of a deal, but
Oh, it's poisonous.
but early alchemists recognized lead as the heaviest of the base metals. Yeah. It was associated with Saturn, the planet, and the god. One of the wonderful things about lead is it blocks out all sound and light. So if you make a box of lead and you don't want any light to ever touch what's in it, just make a box out of lead. Close it up. It's the molecular density of it is so much that nothing can get through.
Superman can't even see it.
Exactly.
Oh, that-
Yep.
Yeah.
It stops energy as well. So if you have something that, and I wouldn't recommend handling raw lead. Once again, it is skin permeable. It can actually get into you just by holding it.
And
I have good
it's
lead.
also,
Yeah, well, there's types of lead nowadays that are they're alloys. They're mixed with other things to actually stabilize and keep the lead from coming out.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Like this solder, that's probably got about 30% lead in it, but it's mixed with other metals that make it safe to handle. It bonds it.
Yeah, so like back in the day, the most common ingredient in most forms of makeup that people wore was lead, and there was like so many cases back in the day with
Yeah.
lead poisoning.
but
I think we're gonna get to that.
are you get about?
You bring up a good point, sir.
Good point.
Okay, it's very toxic. Can be absorbed through the skin as well as ingested. Anybody familiar with Caligula and Nero?
Oh,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
They think
Yes.
there's a lot of stuff coming out now that they were the most famous examples of lead-based insanity. It's because a lot of the water and a lot of the makeups and the powders they used were lead-based because it was when mixed with certain minerals, the lead would allow it to stick to the skin very, very well and leave a sheen.
Yeah.
Because the
Oh.
lead bonded to the skin and the other stuff bonded to the lead. So it made like a coating and they didn't realize that lead was being absorbed right into you.
Yeah.
To the bloodstream.
Well, that's why
Also-
he made his horse Speedy the consul.
Also, lead
Yep.
is lead in its base form is radioactive.
A little bit. Yeah.
Very, very little, but it is radioactive.
Yeah.
But that's one of the other reasons why, as he said, it blocks all energy.
Mhm.
It is by far the best defense against radiation,
Ah.
with water being the second best. Mind you, for 1 foot of lead, you need like 3 foot of water. As an example.
Moving forward. Thank you, sir. See, lead is also the metal of transformation. And that's straight from the alchemists, because they were always trying to turn lead into gold, because they are only 2 points away on the elemental table.
Okay.
It's
Oh, Linda Happeney wrote paint.
yeah, lead
Oh,
paint.
lead
They
paint.
use
Yeah,
it
yeah.
because it like I said, it makes things stick to other things very well. It's super toxic, but it's got purposes. It's a metal of transformation. It's excellent for stability and grounding during meditations. Once again, it does not have to be touching you. It just has to be in the room and your intent focused on it. It's just, and it's a lot like iron in that extent that it acts as an anchor. It's a big, heavy weight that will bring you back to yourself so you don't get lost out there in the void.
How close is lead and pewter?
Lead and pewter, at one point they're interchangeable. I think pewter does pewter have tin added to it? Pewter has something added to it that makes
Yeah,
it a little
tin.
stronger. So you can make vessels and stuff out of it. I believe that's what it is. I think
Pewter
it's
is
tin.
also toxic.
Yeah, it's because of the lead. Yeah.
I recall the Romans would write curses on lead strips, thank
Yep.
you, Claudius, and stick it up on his door. That kind of thing.
And then they would find it in his burial tomb
Yeah.
because the stuff doesn't break down. Unless let's see, for stability and grounding, it's an excellent conduit for speaking to the underworld. To the point that there was actually found in a Roman priest's, they called them cells at the time that they were. There was a trumpet. And they why is it made out of lead? They would actually go and commune with people that wanted to talk to dead family members. They would use the lead trumpet to speak to the underworld.
Like a cell phone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, now you
Direct
say.
line to Pluto.
There's an app. There's an app. It's a lead app.
And one of the final things that lead was really good for was you can use it in binding spells to stop bad habits and to overcome addictions. So,
Useful but deadly.
Exactly. All right, number 7. What time is it?
8:49.
Okay.
You're good.
Good.
Oh, you got the picture of the lead pipe still.
Oh yes, I wanted to show. This is the wondrous thing about the lead pipes and why everybody went crazy. The one, let's see, make sure you're holding it the right way. Okay, goes that way. Okay,
This way.
sorry. The one on the right is a pipe that's, oh, you can pass it around. The one on the
I'm
right
done.
is a pipe that's 1,200 years old. The one on the left is a pipe that's 3,800 years old. The one in the center is only 40 years old. So, first Roman era, second Roman era, just after World War II. Which pipe would you want to drink water out of?
Even though it's lead.
Well, over the centuries, they build up a mineral layer on the inside. It sticks to the lead and actually makes it safe.
Oh,
That's why there's certain parts of Rome that still have the old lead pipes, because they've completely covered the interior with a layer of mineralization that does not allow the lead to touch the water.
Oh, I
So
thought
Caligula was just 3,000 years early.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had just,
The first test subject.
yeah, they were the first, that first group of Romans that went absolutely bonkers and had like the blue lines on their gums and everything, that was right after it was all installed.
Yeah, because that was all around 1
And they
2
did
AD.
it because a lot of Rome at that time was the earth moves. So you could bury a lead pipe in the ground and it could move 3 or 4 feet, and the nature of lead, it would just bend and warp with the movement and rather than breaking.
Very useful.
Mm-hmm.
Ovid mentioned that actually, and the Metamorphosis mentions the lead pipes of Rome. So they were there at the time he was writing.
Oh yeah, it was a great thing. But like now, there's a lot of places in Rome and Italy and Europe that will not take out the lead pipes because they've gone in and they've tested that mineral coat that's built up over the centuries has made the lead pipes safe.
Just gotta wait
So
for
you
the
just have to wait
Just gotta wait.
a couple thousand years. Well, they have a new technique now where they'll actually go through the lead pipes, and if any of it's cracked, they send a type of plastic balloon through, and they heat it up, and it bonds to the inside of the pipe, and it basically coats it with plastic. It makes it just, totally safe. Yeah. That's modern technology. So we went from metal to plastic. Should have stayed with metal. Anyway.
Yeah.
Number 7, this is the last noble metal. Mercury, also known as quicksilver. It is one of the heaviest metals known to mankind. It's actually 2 atomic numbers heavier than lead, but because of its liquid nature, it's known as a living metal because its natural state is to be in a liquid. The only time it comes as a solid is like this stone here, which is I think it's a piece of feldspar or quartz, something in that family. But when it's in nature, it bonds to stones and looks like little silver BBs. They're actually hard there. What they have to do is they use a chemical process where they smash the rock and they use a weak kind of acid to draw the mercury out. And then mercury will drop to the bottom of the vessel, and they have a filter that catches all the big aggregate stones, and all the mercury just comes out the bottom. And that's the same. It was a process that was developed 3,800 years ago, and they still use the same process today. So sometimes the ancients really did know what they were doing. Let's see. It is. Mercury has been found in many ancient cultures and tombs. A lot of modern cultures, Santorini being the most prevalent, use it as a protective warding in their homes. They'll sprinkle it around on the carpets and stuff. I wouldn't recommend that because the vapor from it can be breathed in over time, and it can build up in your brain. If you ever think you're having any kind of mercury toxicity, just do 3 or 4 days of really hot sauna treatments and sweat it out. It'll sweat it right out of your system.
Yeah,
It'll
but-
actually come out.
You know the story of the Mad Hatter?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's because back then they used mercury in hats
Yeah.
and
To form the felt.
to form the felt.
Mhm.
And that's where the term Mad Hatters come from. Because as they would try on their own hats, the mercury would get into their skull, and it's one of the bases behind one of the best characters that guy has ever written, the Mad Hatter.
Yeah. There's a lot of, thank
So
you.
why was mercury in the hat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
mercury in the hat to
Make
shape
it
the
felt.
felt.
Yeah, they use it
Oh,
to shape,
used
yeah.
it
It's part of the
to-
felting
Yeah,
process.
because it's so heavy and flows like water. You can make a mold and put the mercury in it, and then push the felt in, and then the mercury will actually force the felt into that shape. But then the felt also absorbs micro amounts of the mercury. Put it on your head, touches your skin, right in. And then those guys are working with it barehanded too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Touching
Yeah.
this stuff.
Yeah,
This was
no,
before
no
OSHA.
OSHA.
Jinx!
Now the Greeks.
Pre-OSHA, yeah.
The Greeks used mercury in healing practices, primarily for skin afflictions. That actually works. This is a modern day practice in certain parts of the world too, where they take mercury-based cream, and it works really good on things like psoriasis or seborrheic dermatitis. They didn't realize that its secondary side effect was to cause insanity and blindness and multiple personality disorder and all kinds of other things. In the Middle Ages, it was discovered to be, now bear with me here, it was discovered to be an effective cure for syphilis. Now, which type of madness do you want?
Yeah, take
Weighing those options.
You either
I
let,
think
you
pick
either
your
let the
poison.
syphilis make you go crazy, or the mercury stops the syphilis, and then you have to sweat the mercury out.
Then you go crazy anyway.
Then you go nuts anyhow.
They go like super crazy.
The side effect was sadly
Right?
insanity. Yeah, like I said, choose your madness.
Set a thief to take a thief.
Mercury in cosmetics was found to be fatal
Yeah.
to the people that used it. Oddly, there were. It goes back to Egyptian times as well. They used it a lot because it's how they made their faces so shiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not realizing how dangerous it was. Let's see. Fatal to use it. Giving rise to the use as a protective metal for driving away death and decomposition when used in ritual amulets. There's an old example of one. I could not find the picture of it. There was an old example of one in the Vatican in Rome. It's a glass vial from 2200 BC. It's filled with quicksilver. And it was worn by one of the Caesars to ward off evil spirits.
Did it work?
Well, he lived to be 98 years old. So back then,
He became the evil.
Don't break the glass.
It might have actually been. It might have been Augustus Titus. That may. I think that's who they had. It was.
Cursing, break glass.
Yeah. Exactly. In case of overthrow, drink. That's why they don't get you. It's magically used for open communications with the gods and progress. Once again, which type of insanity do you want? Back then, a lot of the people that had these afflictions were thought of as touched by the gods. Mercury was not understood, so they didn't understand that it built up in the brain. Eventually, you start having bipolar issues. You can have multiple personality disorders, but using it in a strict ritual sense, it's meant for protection and driving away things like death and misfortune.
Couldn't you have a small level or thermometer on your altar to represent the mercury?
Absolutely, yeah. If you can find one that's still made with mercury, because they switched to alcohol a long time ago. Yeah.
Gotta have really old ones.
Raw mercury is kind
Why
of
we
hard.
can't have nice things, all those safety precautions.
Well,
And
it's
safety people.
let's
Ruining it
see.
for everybody.
Open communication with the gods, progress of financial plans. After all, Mercury was the messenger of the gods, so he takes, you want something to succeed, Mercury. There's also, for, oddly enough, mental clarity, higher learning, and education. That's where you keep a little, you keep a thing of
Mad
it,
genius.
a little thing like that, full of Mercury. Yeah, mad genius, exactly. That's
Yeah, I was
another
gonna say that
way
kind
to,
of-
yeah. Let's see, the ability to be a persuasive and convincing speaker due to its liquid and flowing aspects.
It makes you high.
Now here's a warning. Do not to be touched or breathe the vapors. It's safe in a small glass jar. In modern magics, it can be placed with silver or chrome for safety. So you don't, but don't ever leave it somewhere where it's open to the air in your home, because those gases will eventually, if breathed in, it will re-solidify in your system and eventually build up in your brain.
There is a company that sells it in sealed vials.
Yeah, you get little ampules of it. Yep.
Yeah, that's what you call it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's called.
Okay. Now,
Believe it's sealed.
going back to lead for a moment, a note about lead, and we were joking about this before we got going. Many alchemists tried to convert lead to gold. This would require nuclear fusion, which is a technology, thankfully, that the ancient people did not have access to. Because if they were ever able to make lead turn into gold, there would be a little mushroom cloud that would come up from their table.
Which is why they come up with the idea of cursed gold.
Yep. And all of these metals, they can all be cleaned and cleansed and grounded out using either smoke or sunlight. So that's the easiest way to cleanse it, because some of them don't play nice with water. All right. Do we have enough time to?
Yes.
Okay, we got plenty of time.
Yeah, it's 9 o'clock.
See this. Hopefully that comes up good.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like a piece of metal with little BBs stuck in it. That's the natural form of mercury. It bonds to the stone that it grows in, which usually they're feldspar or a type of jasper amalgate.
Good idea.
It bonds to it and stays in it, and you actually have to like juice it like an orange to get the mercury to come out. And they use a chemical process to do that. And then this picture I really like. Starting here on the right,
Let's see if Captain Dexterity can get this to work.
where my finger is tapping, that's a lead pipe from about 3,800 years ago in Rome. This one here is about 1,200 years old. And the one in the center, this blows my mind. This is an iron pipe that was put in after World War II in about 1948. It corroded like this in just 60 years. Now look at the difference. Lead pipe, no corrosion. Lead pipe, 3,800 years old, no corrosion. What happens in these old lead pipes, the water they were using was so mineralized that over the centuries, it made a mineral coating inside the pipe and actually made them safe. But for that first 1,000 to 1,200 years, you had a lot of crazy Romans. It was all lead poisoning that drove a lot of the insanity. A couple other examples of, let's see. This is modern lead. This is solder. I just wanted people to understand how soft and malleable lead is. I mean, I could squeeze this just mush it down to a ball and then straighten it right back out with no problem.
Was that a solder?
Or not.
Solder.
Or a knot.
Yep. Believe it or not.
And another thing is, with copper, you used to be able to use lead solder to get them together.
Yeah, you'd seal them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would go in and.
And yet
But it
most
wouldn't
solder
actually
these
touch the
days are actually lead free,
Mhm.
or damn near lead free.
Yeah, that particular solder there has only got about 20% lead in it.
Yeah, I've worked with stuff that has 3%.
But then I also need help with this too.
Yep.
Womp womp.
Thank you for sharing it.
Heard that.
You're welcome. And I'm is it still recording?
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna give you a list of like gods that you can use to bless these metals and help you with, and what a lot of them are associated with. I know I talked about the planetary and god aspects of the metals, but these are all gods of healing or protection and metal. You have Asclepius, he's Greek, and that was straight up healing. Ire is a Valkyrian, that's a protection metal. That's a Norse deity. Ermed is Celtic. She's from the Tuatha De Danann. She also was a protective person who used metals in a lot of her medical practices. Aju is Santeria. Vulcan is Roman. Everybody knows that Vulcan was weapons builder of the gods, and
We met him on Saturday.
yeah, we met him on Saturday. Strangely enough, Apollo because of the gold aspect. He was Greek. He was viewed as a very powerful healing god, because a lot of the maladies in the day could be assuaged just by standing out in the sun for a couple hours. And Artemis, a daughter of Zeus. Mars, of course, same thing as Vulcan almost, only warlike instead of a forger. Bondia, that's another Roman god of earth and fertility. That one's associated with, oddly enough, Mercury and tin, much along the same lines as Venus. You got Odin, Norse, knowledge and strength. His big things were iron and gold. Brigid, Celtic, for healing in home, also a gold or
She's
silver.
also Fire of the Forge.
Fire of the Fort, yep. Let's see, Thoth, or Toth, is Egyptian. He was known for knowledge and healing. Not really a metal associated with him, other than Mercury, for the Greek thinking that it increased the speed of the mind. Zeus, of course, father of the gods. Once again, the representation of Jupiter moved over to Zeus when the Greeks took over that.
The other way around.
Or it might have been the other way around. It might have gone from from Zeus to Jupiter. But the tin lightning bolts were on their temples.
Did you mention Hephaestus?
I did not. I did not mention Hephaestus. Because he didn't. Was there a lot of? I don't know if there was healing. I was trying to stick with
No,
major healing aspects of the metals as
healing
well.
aspect, sorry.
Silver.
Hephaestus is more of the forge aspect of,
Yep. Of working with the metals. Yep.
of working with the metal.
Yeah, I think we had
The smith god.
Vulcan was.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
Anne-
Vulcan and Hephaestus were
Oh, the
kind of interchangeable. Yep.
Yeah. And Anne, what was your question?
Is there an example of the amulet that you all are making that we could see?
Yes. Let me hold that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here it is. It's just a simple. Let me make sure you guys. Is that close enough?
Yep, there you go. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a piece of.
very pretty.
Why did
Iron pyrite.
iron pyrite with a copper wrap, and when worn over the heart chakra, it increases personal power. Is that what I? How did I write that down? There it is.
You got a fancy one there, Trey. You gotta show that off.
You got some people
Yeah, it
with skills
inspires-
in here today.
Inspires the universal energies, nourishes the body, and blends the powers of the sun, moon, and earth together. And then the copper just adds a good positive energy influx to that. Gives you a good place to tie it off around your neck.
You mentioned adding a nail.
Yeah, I have some old. They're from the 1800s iron nails that came out of a house. I don't know why I have them. I guess as a gift from my grandparents at some point. But yeah, you could take one of these and add that for strength and clarity of thought and protection. You could probably slide it in. I mean, this is a very simple way of doing it, but see, and you wouldn't wear it like that, but I'm just showing how you can use the wire to attach it.
Right arm ain't my strongest.
Maybe dangling underneath.
Yeah, yeah. If you went around the head of the nail with a little piece of copper, yeah, you could put it right there as a little movie
and then
part.
it also is you're poking the bad things.
Yep.
Tie it easier.
You could hang that in the
Thank you.
doorway or whatever,
Absolutely. You can actually polish this to a mirror. It's almost a mirror now. You could actually polish the iron pyrite and have that sitting somewhere, and do the same thing as keeping, having a silver mirror to reflect negative energies back out of your house. This way, people can't bring their negativity in with them. It's probably why a lot of those houses in the 70s have that like 6x8 mirror on a wall facing the front door.
Yeah, that's what we got.
Yeah,
Got tapestry over it, but it's there.
Okay.
got one of those.
All right. Anything else, Carl?
Uh,
I think we're done.
unless anyone has any more questions, I think we're good.
Well, yay! Thank you, thank you.